The scratch of Mrs. Henderson's coat against the wooden chair told me she'd settled into her usual spot near the periodicals. The hum of the computer lab filtered through the open doorway to my left, punctuated by the occasional cough from someone pretending they weren't watching videos on library time. I counted my steps carefully, trailing my fingers along the shelf spines, feeling for the subtle differences in texture that told me where one section ended and another began. 17 steps from the circulation desk to the Braille section. Always 17. I'd memorized this route 3 years ago when I started working here, back when Elena first took a chance on hiring a blind library assistant. Most people assumed I couldn't do the job, that shelving books required sight. They were wrong. I was faster than half the sighted staff, my fingers flying over call numbers stamped in raised dots, my mental map of the library more detailed than any floor plan. My name is Perry Ashford. I'm 24 years old and I've been blind since birth. Some genetic condition my parents never bothered explaining before they died 6 years ago in a car accident that also should have killed me but didn't. I don't remember their faces because I never saw them, but I remember my mother's voice reading to me, my father's rough hands teaching me to tie my shoes by feel. I remember Riley, my younger brother, crying in the hospital after the funeral, asking me how we'd survive when I couldn't even see. I'd figured it out. We'd survived. Barely, but we had. I shelved The Last Braille Return, a mystery novel someone had checked out 3 times this year, and allowed myself a moment of exhaustion. I'd worked a double shift because Marcus called in sick again, which meant I'd been on my feet for 9 hours with only a granola bar for lunch. My studio apartment was a 30-minute walk from here, and I still needed to stop at the corner store for milk and bread. Riley hadn't called in 3 weeks, which wasn't unusual. He went through phases of ignoring me when he was embarrassed about something, but it left me with a knot of worry in my stomach that hadn't eased. The library would close in an hour. I could either start my walk now and avoid the evening rush, or I could steal 45 minutes in the quiet reading room with an audiobook and leave myself barely enough time to get home before dark. The choice wasn't really a choice. I was too tired to care about being practical. I retrieved my white cane from where I had left it, propped against the circulation desk, collapsed it to navigate the narrow aisles more easily, and made my way to the quiet reading room. The carpet changed texture under my feet, industrial and rough in the main library, softer and slightly plush in the reading room. Elena had fought the budget committee for that carpet, arguing that people came to libraries for comfort as much as books. The quiet reading room smelled like old paper and furniture polish. I breathed it in, letting the familiar scent ease some of the tension from my shoulders. My chair was in the back left corner, a wingback with arms that had been recovered so many times the fabric was baby soft under my palms. I'd claimed it 2 years ago, and the regulars knew to leave it empty for me. I settled into it with a sigh that came from somewhere deep in my bones, pulled out my phone, and queued up the audiobook I'd been working through, some thriller about a detective tracking a serial killer. I wasn't particularly invested in the plot, but the narrator had a voice, like whiskey and gravel, that made even the boring parts interesting. The story washed over me. I let my head rest against the chair back, my cane leaning against the armrest within easy reach. The quiet room lived up to its name, just the soft whisper of turning pages from somewhere across the room and the distant rumble of traffic outside. Then I heard them. Footsteps. 2 sets, moving in perfect sync like they'd walked together for years. Heavy boots, expensive from the sound of them, leather soles on the reading room carpet. The footsteps stopped near me, and I heard the whoosh of air as 2 bodies dropped into chairs with the kind of exhaustion that came from more than just physical tiredness. I didn't acknowledge them. The quiet reading room had an unspoken rule: leave each other alone. People came here to escape, and I respected that. Besides, I was too tired to make small talk with strangers. One of them sighed, a sound so deep it seemed to come from his chest cavity. The other shifted in his chair, and I caught a scent on the air that made my omega instincts prick up with interest. Alpha. No, alphas. 2 of them. I froze for half a second before forcing myself to relax. Alphas came to the library all the time. It didn't mean anything. I was on suppressants, had been since I was 16, and my scent was muted enough that most people couldn't tell I was omega unless they got very close. I'd learned early that advertising my designation led to assumptions I didn't have the energy to fight. The audiobook continued. The detective found another body. I tried to focus on the story, but I was hyper-aware of the 2 alphas near me now. Their breathing had started to even out, deep and rhythmic. They were falling asleep. I should have moved then, should have quietly gathered my things and relocated to a different part of the library. But I was so tired, and they weren't bothering me, and the selfish part of me that had walked 9 hours today in shoes that were developing a hole in the left sole didn't want to give up my chair. Time passed. I'm not sure how much. The audiobook played, chapter bleeding into chapter. The detective got closer to catching the killer. My eyelids grew heavy despite the coffee I'd had 3 hours ago. Then I felt it. Weight on my left shoulder, warm and solid, a head resting against me with the kind of trust that only came from deep sleep. Before I could process that, weight on my right shoulder too. Another head, another body leaning into me. Both alphas had slumped against me in their sleep, one on each side, pinning me to the chair between them. My heart rate kicked up. I should wake them, should definitely wake them. This was inappropriate and weird, and I didn't know these men, and what if they woke up angry that they'd been touching an omega, even accidentally? But their scent was wrapping around me now, thick and heady in a way that made my suppressants feel like they were working overtime. One smelled like black coffee and leather, sharp and clean. The other like cedar and something acrid I couldn't quite place. Gunpowder, maybe? Both scents were distinctly alpha, but muted in sleep, not aggressive or threatening. Just warm, safe. I told myself I'd give them 5 minutes. Let them rest because I knew what exhaustion felt like, knew what it was to be so tired you'd sleep anywhere, even sitting up in a library chair. 5 minutes, then I'd shift and wake them naturally, and we'd all pretend this hadn't happened. The audiobook kept playing. The weight on my shoulders was grounding in a way I hadn't expected. I could feel their breathing, slow and steady, their chests rising and falling in a rhythm that seemed synchronized. My own breathing started to match theirs without me meaning to, and my eyelids grew heavier. Just 5 minutes, I thought again. I woke to the sound of sharp inhalation on both sides of me. The heads on my shoulders hadn't moved, but I felt both bodies go tense simultaneously. Their breathing changed, no longer the deep evenness of sleep, but something faster, more aware. I could practically feel their attention focusing on me like a physical weight. A low sound rumbled from the alpha on my left. Not quite a growl, but close, possessive. The alpha on my right answered with a similar sound, and the air between us seemed to thicken with something I couldn't name but my omega biology recognized instantly. Omega, one of them breathed, his voice rough with sleep. The word was barely above a whisper, but it hit me like a shout. Ours, the other rumbled, and that word vibrated through me from where his head still rested on my shoulder. Panic spiked through my exhaustion. I tried to pull away, to stand, but hands clamped on my arms before I could move. One hand on each arm, grips firm enough to hold me in place, but not painful. Not yet. "Excuse me," I said, trying to keep my voice level even as my heart hammered against my ribs. "I need to leave now." Neither of them let go. I felt them shift, sitting up properly but maintaining their holds on me. Their sense intensified, no longer muted by sleep, and my suppressants felt like tissue paper against the onslaught of alpha pheromones suddenly flooding the small space. "Don't move," the one on my left said. His voice was smooth, cultured, with an edge of command that made my omega instincts want to obey before my brain caught up. He cut himself off abruptly. "I don't know what you think is happening," I said, and I was proud that my voice only shook a little. "But you need to let go of me right now. What's your name?" The one on my right, his voice rougher, less polished than his companions. "That's none of your business." "It's very much our business," the smooth-voiced one countered. "You're our—" "I'm leaving," I interrupted, trying again to stand. This time they let me, but I heard them both rise as well, one on each side of me. I grabbed my cane from where it leaned against the chair, snapped it open with practiced efficiency, and took one step before realizing I had no idea which direction would take me to the door. I'd been disoriented by sleep, by their proximity, by the way my omega biology was screaming at me to stay close to these alphas even as my rational mind knew I needed to run. "Perry?" Elena's voice cut through the tension, high and tight with an emotion I'd never heard from her before. Fear. Mr. Cross, I didn't know you were here. Is there a problem?" My blood turned to ice in my veins. Cross. I knew that name. Everyone in this neighborhood knew that name. The Cross twins ran half the illegal operations in the city, from protection rackets to underground gambling to things people only whispered about. They were dangerous, powerful, and very, very bad news for someone like me. Cross? I echoed, my voice coming out strangled. As in the people who own half this neighborhood, Elena said quietly. I could hear the forced calm in her voice, the way she was trying not to provoke them. Perry, maybe you should. We're looking for Riley Ashford, the smooth-voiced one said. Dayton, I realized. Dayton Cross, the strategic one, the one who handled the business side of their operations. Which meant the rougher voice belonged to Gable Cross, who handled enforcement. I was trapped between the two most dangerous men in the city, and they were looking for my brother. You know him? Dayton continued when I didn't answer. He's my brother, I whispered, because lying seemed both pointless and dangerous. What do you want with Riley? He owes us money, Gable said bluntly, his voice coming from my right. $50,000, plus interest. It's been 8 weeks. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. $50,000. Riley didn't have $50 most days, let alone $50,000. I made $18,000 a year working at the library. Combined, we couldn't pay back that kind of debt in a decade. That's not possible, I said. But even as I spoke, I knew it was. Riley had always been too confident, too sure he could beat the odds. He'd promised me 6 months ago he'd stopped gambling, stopped borrowing money from dangerous people he'd promised. He borrowed it, Dayton said, and his voice was closer now. I could feel the heat of him just inches from my left side. From our associates. Hasn't been seen in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. The same amount of time Riley hadn't called. Which means the debt transfers to family, Dayton continued, his tone matter of fact, like he was discussing the weather instead of destroying my life. My legs gave out. I would have hit the floor if hands hadn't caught me, one arm wrapping around my waist from each side. They held me up between them, their grip strong and steady, and my traitorous Omega biology flooded me with relief at their support even as my mind screamed at me to fight. I don't have that kind of money, I managed. My voice sounded very far away. We know, Dayton said. There was a pause, heavy with implications I couldn't see, but could feel pressing down on me like a physical weight. But you have something else, Gable rumbled, and his hand on my waist tightened just slightly, possessive. You're coming with us, Dayton said. Not a question, a statement of fact. I'm not going anywhere with. The words died in my throat as heat slammed into me like a physical blow. It started low in my belly and spread outward in waves, my skin suddenly too tight, too hot, too sensitive where their hands touched me. My scent spiked. I could smell it myself, even through my suppressants, rain and cotton going sharp and sweet with Omega distress and something else. Something I'd never felt before because I'd never been this close to alphas who were this interested in me. Pseudo-heat. My suppressants were failing, overwhelmed by the double dose of alpha pheromones now that they were awake and aware of me. My body recognized them as potential mates and was preparing itself accordingly, biology overriding every rational thought in my head. Fuck, Dayton hissed. His arm tightened around my waist, pulling me closer against his side. Gable, get the car. Now. I felt Gable hesitate, his hand flexing on my waist like he didn't want to let go. Then his touch vanished, and I heard his footsteps moving away quickly. Perry, Elena said, and her voice cracked. Perry, I'm so sorry. I didn't know Riley had if I'd known. It's not your fault, I tried to say, but the words came out slurred. The pseudo-heat was intensifying, my knees buckling again. Dayton caught me easily, shifting to hold me fully against his chest. I should have fought, should have screamed. But his scent was everywhere, coffee and leather and alpha, and my Omega hindbrain was purring with satisfaction at being held. I've got you, Dayton murmured against my temple. Just breathe. The last thing I remember before the pseudo-heat dragged me under completely was the sound of Elena crying softly in the background, and the terrifying realization that I'd just lost every shred of independence I'd fought so hard to build. I woke to the sensation of movement, the hum of an engine beneath me, the slight sway of a vehicle taking turns. My head was pillowed on something warm and firm that rose and fell with steady breathing. A hand was in my hair, fingers carding through it gently, repetitively, a soothing gesture that my omega instincts wanted to lean into. I kept my eyes closed out of habit before remembering it wouldn't make a difference anyway. The pseudo-heat had broken, leaving me weak and disoriented but no longer burning from the inside out. My suppressants must have reasserted themselves once I was unconscious, once the immediate trigger of the alphas' attention had been removed. But I was still in danger, still trapped in a vehicle with the Cross twins, being taken somewhere I didn't know for purposes I didn't want to think about. He's awake, Gable's voice rumbled from above me. His chest, I realized. My head was in his lap in the back seat of what had to be an expensive vehicle based on how quiet the engine was. Heart rate changed about 30 seconds ago, Dayton said from somewhere in front of me. The front seat, probably. How are you feeling, Perry? How was I feeling? Terrified, furious, violated. My brother had sold me to the mob to pay his gambling debts, and these alphas had taken me like I was property they'd purchased. But I also felt the after effects of pseudo-heat, the bone-deep exhaustion and lingering sensitivity that made Gable's hand in my hair feel impossibly good. My omega biology was still very interested in these alphas, suppressants be damned. Where are you taking me? I asked, instead of answering his question. My voice was hoarse, my throat dry. Home, Dayton said simply. My home is... Our home, Gable interrupted, his hand stilled in my hair. You're not going back to that studio apartment alone. Not when you're about to go into full heat. Horror spiked through me. I'm on suppressants. Which will fail, Dayton cut in. His voice was matter-of-fact, clinical. They always do with fated mates. You felt it back there, Perry. That wasn't normal pseudo-heat. That was a mate bond trying to form. Your body recognized us. No, that couldn't be right. Fated mates were rare, 1 in 1,000 omega alpha pairs. The chances of finding one fated mate were astronomical. 2 at once? Impossible. Except my omega biology was screaming that it wasn't impossible, that these alphas were mine, that I was theirs, that everything would be perfect if I just stopped fighting and accepted it. I want my cane, I said instead, because I needed to ground myself in something concrete, something I could control. Silence for a beat. Then Gable, it's here, right next to you. I fumbled with my right hand, found the familiar metal cylinder on the seat beside me. I clutched it like a lifeline, like as long as I had my cane, I was still Perry Ashford, still independent, still in control of my own life. Where's Riley? I asked, forcing my voice steady. If you heard him. We haven't found him, Dayton said, and I heard truth in his voice. Yet. But when we do, the debt will be settled one way or another. The threat hung in the air between us. I knew what settled meant in their world. People who owed the Cross twins money didn't live to tell about it if they couldn't pay. I'll pay it, I said desperately, trying to push myself upright. Gable's hands came to my shoulders, steadying me, but also holding me in place. I'll work. I'll get a second job. $50,000 plus interest is now $68,000. Dayton interrupted. His tone was still clinical, like he was discussing a business transaction rather than my brother's life. At your library salary, it would take you approximately 12 years to pay off, assuming you somehow survived without paying rent or buying food. We don't wait that long. 12 years. The number sat in my stomach like a stone. Riley had destroyed both our lives for gambling debt. The car stopped. I heard the driver's door open and close, then Dayton's door. A moment later, my door opened, and cool evening air rushed in. Can you walk? Dayton asked. His voice came from just outside the car. I can walk, I said, pushing away from Gable and trying to stand. My legs were shakier than I wanted to admit, the pseudo-heat having taken more out of me than I'd realized. I fumbled for my cane, got it extended, and stepped out of the car onto pavement. Not here. You can't, Gable said, and before I could protest, he'd lifted me into his arms. One arm under my knees, the other behind my back, cradling me against his chest like I weighed nothing. I can walk, I repeated, humiliation burning through me. I just need a minute to... You don't know the layout, Gable said. His voice was gentler than I expected. You could hurt yourself. And that was when the full reality of my situation crashed over me. I was blind. I was in an unfamiliar place. I had no idea where I was, how to get home, how to call for help. Every carefully memorized route, every mental map I'd built over years of learning to navigate my world was completely useless here. I was utterly, completely dependent on them. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes and blinked them away furiously. I wouldn't cry, wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. "Where are we?" I asked instead. "My building," Dayton said. I heard him walking beside us as Gable carried me. "Penthouse level, 42 floors up." 42 floors. I'd never been higher than the third floor of the library. The thought of being that far from the ground made my stomach clench. I heard doors whoosh open, elevator doors probably, and then we were moving upward. The sensation of rising made my inner ear protest. I turned my face into Gable's chest without meaning to, breathing in his scent to ground myself, cedar and gunpowder and alpha. My omega hindbrain purred. "Almost there," Gable murmured. His voice rumbled through his chest into my ear. "You're doing good." I wasn't doing anything. I was being carried like a child, like someone helpless, like everything I'd spent my life proving I wasn't. The elevator stopped. More doors whooshed open. Gable carried me forward, and I heard the click of expensive shoes on what sounded like marble or tile. Then the texture changed to something softer, carpet or a rug. "I'm going to set you down," Gable said. "There's a couch right behind you." He lowered me carefully onto what was indeed a couch. Leather, butter soft, the kind that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. I kept my cane in a death grip, my other hand pressed against the couch cushion to orient myself. "Describe it," I said suddenly. If I was going to be trapped here, I at least needed to know what here was. "The penthouse?" Dayton's voice came from my left, maybe 10 feet away. "You want me to describe it?" "Yes." I lifted my chin, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. "If you're going to keep me here, I need to know the layout." There was a pause. Then Dayton's footsteps approached, and I felt him sit down on the couch beside me, not touching, but close enough that I could feel his body heat. "All right," he said. "The elevator opens directly into the foyer. Black marble floor, 6 feet by 6 feet. Straight ahead from the elevator is the living room where we are now. Hardwood floors with a large Persian rug in the center. The couch you're on faces the windows, floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the city. To your left is the kitchen. Open concept, marble countertops, island in the center. To your right is a hallway that leads to 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The master is at the end. The other 2 bedrooms are on the left and right before you reach it." His voice was calm, precise, giving me the information I needed without condescension. I built the mental map in my head as he spoke, filling in the details. "How far to the windows?" I asked. 15 feet from where you're sitting." "And the kitchen?" 20 feet to your left. You'll cross from the rug to hardwood about halfway there." I nodded, processing. "What else?" "There's a study off the living room, on the far right side. My office. Gable's is in the master bedroom. There's a gym in the building, pool on the 41st floor, but you wouldn't," he stopped abruptly. "Wouldn't what?" I asked sharply. "Be able to use them? Because I'm blind?" "I was going to say you wouldn't have access without one of us," Dayton corrected. "The elevator requires a key card for the penthouse level. Building security is extensive. Because they were criminals, because people wanted to kill them, and now I was trapped in their fortress, 42 floors above the ground, with no way out. I need to use the bathroom," I said, because it was true, but also because I needed space, needed to be away from their suffocating presence for 5 minutes to think. "I'll show you," Gable said, and I heard him move closer. "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Just tell me how to get there. I can do it myself." Another pause. Then Dayton, 15 steps forward from where you're sitting. You'll reach the hallway. Turn right. The first door on your left is a bathroom. It's 3 steps after you turn." I stood carefully, extended my cane, and counted. The floor texture changed from rug to hardwood exactly where he'd said it would. I found the hallway, turned right, counted 3 steps, and found the door. It was open. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me, and finally let myself breathe. The bathroom was large. I could tell from the echo when I let out a shaky breath. I fumbled for the light switch out of habit, even though it wouldn't make any difference to me, and found it on the right side of the door. I flipped it on anyway. Then, I slid down the door until I was sitting on what felt like heated tile floor, wrapped my arms around my knees, and tried not to fall apart completely. Riley had done this. My baby brother, the one I'd raised after our parents died, the one I'd worked 2 jobs to put through high school, had sold me to the mob for $50,000. And now I was trapped with 2 alphas who thought I was their fated mate, who'd taken me from the library like I was property, who were keeping me here for God knows what purpose. I should have been planning escape, should have been trying to figure out how to get to a phone, call the police, something. But even through my panic, I knew it was useless. The police wouldn't help me against the Cross twins, and even if they did, even if I somehow got free, Riley's debt would still exist. They'd still hunt him down. They'd still kill him. Unless I could convince them to let him go. Unless I could give them something they wanted more than money. My stomach turned over. I knew what they wanted. They'd made it clear in the library. They thought I was their omega, their fated mate. And if that was true, if the bond was really trying to form, then they'd never let me go. But maybe I could bargain. Maybe I could trade myself for Riley's safety. Stay here willingly if they promised to forgive his debt and leave him alone. It was the only leverage I had. I pulled myself up, used the toilet, washed my hands, and tried to compose myself. When I opened the bathroom door, I nearly ran into Gable. He'd been standing right outside, close enough that I walked into his chest. His hands came up to steady me, gripping my shoulders gently. "You okay?" "No," I said honestly, "but I need to talk to both of you about Riley's debt." I felt him tense. "Come on. Dayton's in the living room." He offered me his arm. I hesitated, then took it, letting him guide me back. It was more efficient than using my cane in an unfamiliar space, and I needed to conserve my energy for the negotiation ahead. Dayton was standing by the windows when we reached the living room. I could tell by the direction his voice came from when he spoke. "You want to talk about the debt?" "Yes." I lifted my chin. "I want to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" His footsteps approached. I heard him sit down, probably on the couch. Gable guided me to sit as well, then settled beside me. I was between them again, one twin on each side. The position should have felt threatening, but instead felt oddly secure. My omega biology was still determined to betray me. "You said the debt is $68,000, I began, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "I can't pay that. But you also said in the library you said I was your—" I couldn't quite make myself say the words. "You think there's a bond forming." "There is a bond forming," Gable corrected. His voice was certain, absolute. We both felt it. You did too. I didn't deny it. Lying would be pointless. "If that's true, then you want me to stay here." "Yes," Dayton said simply. "Then here's my deal. I'll stay. Willingly. I won't fight you, won't try to run. I swallowed hard. I'll accept the bond. Let it form. Whatever you want from me, I'll give it. In exchange, you forgive Riley's debt completely. You leave him alone. You promise he'll be safe." Silence. I could feel them looking at each other over my head, some silent communication passing between them. "No," Dayton said finally. My heart sank. "No? The debt is already forgiven," Gable said. His hand found mine, engulfing it completely. "Has been since we scented you in the library." I jerked my hand away. "What?" "The debt was never the point," Dayton said. His voice was calm, matter of fact. "Riley borrowed money from our associates. Yes, that's true. But the moment we realized you existed, the moment we caught your scent, the debt became irrelevant." "You mean," horror was creeping up my spine, "you were never going to collect it?" "We were going to find Riley." Dayton corrected. Make sure he understood the consequences of borrowing money he couldn't repay. But the debt itself? That was just an excuse to keep you here until you accepted the bond. "You lied to me," I whispered. "You let me think." "We didn't lie," Gable interrupted. "Everything we told you was true. Riley does owe money. We are looking for him. The debt does transfer to family. We just didn't mention that we'd already decided to forgive it if it meant keeping you." I stood abruptly, rage burning through the fear. "You manipulated me. You scared me, made me think you were going to hurt my brother, made me bargain for his safety when it was never in danger." "It is in danger," Dayton said, and his voice had an edge now. "Just not from us. Riley owes money to other people too, Perry. People who aren't as forgiving as we are. People who will hurt him if they find him first." That stopped me. "Other people?" "Victor Santos," Gable said grimly. Runs operations on the south side. Riley borrowed from him too, about a month before he borrowed from us. $30,000. That's now closer to $50,000, with Santos's interest rates. I sat back down heavily. You're lying. Call him, Dayton said, and I heard him moving, pulling something from his pocket. We can give you Riley's number. Ask him yourself. I don't have his number, I admitted. He hasn't called in 3 weeks. We know, Gable said quietly. We've been trying to find him too, to bring him in before Santos does. Why? I asked. Why do you care what happens to him if the debt is forgiven? Because he's your brother, Dayton said simply, and you're ours, which means he's under our protection whether he deserves it or not. The casual possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver through me. I'm not yours. You can't just decide that. We didn't decide it, Gable said. His hand found my knee, warm and heavy. The bond decided. We just recognized it. I don't believe in fated mates, I said, but my voice shook. It's just biology. Pheromones. It doesn't mean anything. It means everything, Dayton said. But we're not going to force you to accept it, Perry. You're free to leave whenever you want. I laughed, bitter and sharp. I'm blind and 42 floors up in a building I don't know, in a part of the city I've never been to. How exactly am I free to leave? Marco will drive you anywhere you want to go, Dayton said. Your apartment, the library, anywhere. Right now if you want. We won't stop you. It had to be a trap. They couldn't actually mean it. And Riley's debt? Forgiven either way, Gable said. Stay or go. We'll find him, and make sure Santos doesn't touch him. Why? I demanded. If I leave, if I reject the bond, why would you still protect him? Because he's important to you, Dayton said softly. And hurting people you love would hurt you. We won't do that. I sat there, trembling with emotions I couldn't name. They were offering me freedom, offering to let me go, to protect Riley anyway, to ask for nothing in return. It should have been an easy choice. But my omega biology was screaming at me not to leave, not to walk away from these alphas who my body insisted were meant for me. And underneath that, quieter but just as insistent, was a treacherous part of me that was tired of being alone, tired of struggling, tired of being responsible for everything and everyone with no one to lean on. I need time, I whispered, to think. Take all the time you need, Dayton said. But your heat is coming, Perry. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but soon. When it hits, you'll need to decide whether you want us here or whether you want to ride it out alone. The thought of going through heat alone in this unfamiliar place was terrifying. But the thought of going through it with them, of letting them claim me completely, was even more terrifying. The bedroom you mentioned, I said. The one on the right, in the hallway. Is it prepared? Yes, Gable said. We had it ready before we brought you here. Of course they had. They'd been so sure I'd stay. Show me, I said. And then I want to be alone. Gable stood, offered me his hand. I took it, let him pull me up and guide me to the hallway. 15 steps, just like Dayton had said. Turn right. The first door on the right side of the hallway, not the bathroom on the left. Gable opened the door, and we stepped inside. The space felt large, the acoustics different from the living room. He walked me through it, describing as he went. A queen bed against the far wall. A dresser to the left. A closet on the right, already stocked with clothes in my size. A bathroom attached, with a walk-in shower and a bathtub. On the bedside table, I felt what he told me were books, Braille books. I ran my fingers over the spines, feeling the raised dots. They were new, the paper still stiff, not worn soft by other readers' hands. How did you know? I asked quietly. We've been watching you for 3 days, Gable admitted. Since Riley's debt came to our attention, and we realized he had a brother. We saw you at the library, saw how you navigated, what section you worked in. Dayton ordered the books. 3 days. They'd been planning this for 3 days, watching me, learning about me, preparing this room like a cage disguised as comfort. Get out, I said. My voice was shaking again. Please, just get out. He hesitated. I felt it in the way his hand tightened on mine for just a second before letting go. Then his footsteps retreated. The door closed, softly, behind him. I was alone. I made my way to the bed, sat down on the edge, and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. The fear The anger, the betrayal, the grief for the life I'd lost in the span of one afternoon. And underneath it all, quieter but growing stronger, the traitorous pull of the bond that insisted these alphas were mine, that I was safe here, that I belonged between them. I pulled my phone from my pocket, unlocked it by touch, and called Riley's number. It went straight to voicemail like it had for the past 3 weeks. "Riley," I said after the beep. My voice was steady now, cold. "I know about the debt, all of it. When you get this message, call me back. We need to talk." "And Riley?" I paused. "You better pray they find you before I do." I hung up, plugged the phone into a charger I found by feel on the bedside table. They'd thought of everything. Then I lay back on the bed. In this room that was supposed to be mine, in this penthouse that was supposed to be my home, and stared at the ceiling I couldn't see while my world rearranged itself into something I didn't recognize. Tomorrow I would figure out what to do. Tomorrow I would make a plan. Tonight, I just needed to survive. I woke to the smell of coffee. Not the burnt, bitter coffee from the library break room, but real coffee, rich and dark and complex. My stomach growled despite everything, reminding me I hadn't eaten since the granola bar yesterday morning. I sat up carefully, orienting myself. The bed was soft, too soft, like sleeping on a cloud. I'd barely slept, my mind churning through everything that had happened, every possible escape route, every way this could go wrong. But exhaustion had claimed me eventually, pulling me under into fitful dreams of running through hallways that all led back to the same place. I heard a soft knock on the door. "Perry? You awake?" Dayton's voice, smooth and cultured, even through the door. "I'm awake," I called back, my voice rough from sleep and crying I wouldn't admit to. The door opened. Footsteps approached, confident and measured. I smelled the coffee stronger now, and something else. Bread, butter. "I brought breakfast," Dayton said. I felt the bed dip as he sat down beside me, not touching but close. Toast, eggs, fruit, coffee if you want it. I wasn't sure what you liked. "I'm not hungry," I lied. "Your stomach says otherwise." There was amusement in his voice. "Eat, Perry. Whatever else is happening, you still need food." He was right, and I hated that he was right. I reached out and he guided my hand to a tray on my lap. I felt the plates, the arrangement of food, the mug of coffee still steaming. "Thank you," I said stiffly. "You're welcome." He didn't leave. I felt him sitting there, watching me eat. It should have been uncomfortable, but instead it was grounding. I ate the toast first, buttered perfectly, then the eggs that were fluffy and seasoned just right. The fruit was fresh, melon and berries that burst on my tongue. "Gable cooked," Dayton said. "He's better at it than I am. I tend to burn things." "Where is he?" I asked, despite myself. "Jim, working off nervous energy." Dayton paused. "We haven't claimed an Omega before, Perry. We're both trying to figure this out as we go." I set down my fork. "I haven't agreed to be claimed." "No," he agreed. "You haven't, but your heat will make that choice for you in the next few days. And before it does, there are things you should know." "Like what?" "Like the fact that we meant what we said last night. You can leave. The debt is forgiven. We'll protect Riley either way. But if you stay..." He paused. "If you stay and let the bond form, you need to understand what that means in our world." "Your world being organized crime," I said flatly. "Yes. We run operations across the city. Gambling, protection, some import-export that doesn't always follow legal channels. We have enemies, Perry. People who would hurt you to hurt us. If you bond with us, you become a target." "That's supposed to convince me to stay?" I asked, incredulously. "It's supposed to give you informed consent," he said. "We can protect you. We will protect you. But there's always risk. And you deserve to know that before making your choice." I picked up the coffee mug, wrapped my hands around it. The warmth was comforting. "What happens if I say no? If I leave and my heat comes anyway?" "We'll find you," Dayton said simply. "The bond is already pulling at us, Perry. When your heat hits, it'll be overwhelming for all of us. We'll know where you are, we'll feel your need, and we'll come for you whether you want us to or not. That's inevitable," he finished. "I'm not trying to scare you, I'm trying to be honest. Fated mate bonds don't give you a choice about whether they exist." Just about whether you fight them or accept them. I sipped the coffee, buying myself time to think. You said you've been watching me for 3 days. What did you see? You want to know what we think of you? Dayton said. Not a question, an observation. Yes. He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. We saw a man who navigates a world that wasn't built for him, with more grace than most people who can see. We saw someone who works himself to exhaustion for minimum wage, but never complains, never asks for help. We saw you shelve books faster than your coworkers, memorize layouts that would take others weeks to learn, go out of your way to help an elderly woman find a large print mystery novel. We saw strength, Perry, and stubbornness, and a loneliness that made us both want to fix it. My throat was tight. You don't know anything about me. We know enough, he said. We know you raised your brother after your parents died. We know you put him through school while working 2 jobs. We know he's let you down before, probably more than once, but you keep believing in him anyway. We know you're terrified of being dependent on anyone because you've learned that people leave, people die, people disappoint. And we know that under all that fear, you want someone to take care of you for a change. You're just too proud to admit it. Stop, I whispered, because he was right and it hurt. His hand found mine on the mug, covered it gently. I'll teach you the penthouse layout today if you want. Every room, every measurement, every obstacle. By tomorrow, you'll be able to navigate it as well as you navigate the library. You won't be helpless here, Perry. We won't let you be. I pulled my hand away. Why? Why do you even care? Because you're ours, he said simply. And we take care of what's ours. Before I could respond, I heard the front door open. Heavy footsteps, 2 sets, Gable's voice. Dayton, we've got a problem. Dayton stood immediately. Stay here, he told me. Eat your breakfast. I'll be back. He left, closing the door behind him. I heard muffled voices from the living room, urgent and tense. I strained to hear but couldn't make out the words. Minutes passed. I finished the coffee, picked at the fruit, and tried not to let my imagination run wild about what problem meant in their world. The door opened again. This time it was Gable who entered, his scent filling the room. Cedar and gunpowder and something darker now. Anger. We found Riley, he said, without preamble. My heart jumped. Where? Is he okay? He's alive, Gable said grimly. For now. Santos has him. Sent us a message. He knows about you. Ice flooded my veins. What kind of message? A photo, Gable said. Riley, tied to a chair, beaten but conscious, and a note saying if we want him back, we trade you for him. No, Dayton's voice from the doorway, sharp and commanding. Absolutely not. I'm not suggesting it, Gable said. I'm telling Perry what we're dealing with. I stood on shaky legs. When? When does he want the trade? Perry, Dayton started. When? I demanded. Tomorrow night, Gable said. Neutral ground. You for Riley. Then I'll do it, I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. I'll go. Like hell you will, Dayton snapped. I heard him cross the room, felt his presence right in front of me. Do you understand what Santos would do to you? He doesn't want you for your brother's debt, Perry. He wants you because he knows what you are to us. He'll hurt you to hurt us, torture you to draw us out. And when he's done with you, he'll kill you, just to prove he can. He's right, Gable said. His hand found my shoulder, gripped tight. You go near Santos, and you're dead. But, Riley... We'll get Riley, Dayton interrupted. Without trading you. We have resources, Perry. Plans. But we need you to trust us. Trust you? I laughed bitterly. You kidnapped me. You've been manipulating me since the moment we met. You're criminals who make a living hurting people. Why the hell would I trust you? Silence. Heavy and charged. Then Gable, his voice rough. Because Riley is your family, and we're going to save him anyway, even though he doesn't deserve it. Because keeping you safe matters more to us than settling the debt or proving a point to Santos. Because when we say you're ours, we mean it. All of you. Including the parts that come with a fuck-up brother and a history of bad decisions. We have 28 hours, Dayton said. 28 hours to find out where Santos is holding him and extract him before the scheduled meeting. We've already got people working on it. And if you can't find him in time? I asked. We will, Dayton said with absolute certainty. But if you can't, I pressed. If tomorrow night comes and you don't have Riley, what happens then? Neither of them answered immediately. Then, Gable, then we kill Santos and everyone in his organization until someone tells us where your brother is. Which would start a war, Dayton added. Cost lives on both sides. Destabilize half the city. But we'd do it, for you. I sank back onto the bed. They were talking about mass murder like it was a minor inconvenience, like burning down half the city was an acceptable price for keeping me from being traded to their rival. You're insane, I whispered. No, Dayton said. We're alphas who found our omega. There's nothing we wouldn't do to keep you safe. I heard him move away, heard both of them talking in low voices by the door. Then Gable approached me again, sat down on the bed beside me. I know you're scared, he said quietly. I know this is all too much, too fast. But Perry, I swear to you, we will get your brother back, and we'll keep you safe. Both of those things are true at the same time. You don't have to choose. I want to help, I said. I can't just sit here while Riley is. Yes, you can. Dayton cut in. And you will, because if Santos gets even a hint that you're not secured here, he'll send people for you. The safest place for you right now is in this penthouse with us. He was right, and I hated it. Hated being helpless, hated being protected like I was something fragile and breakable. I need to call him, I said suddenly. Riley, if Santos has his phone, I can. No, both twins said simultaneously. Santos is smart enough to trace the call, Dayton explained. Use it to track your location. We can't risk it. Then what am I supposed to do? I demanded. Just wait here, like a good little Omega, while you two play hero? Learn the layout, Gable said, like Dayton offered. Learn this space so well you could navigate it in your sleep, because Perry, your heat is going to hit soon. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. And when it does, you need to know this place is safe. That you're safe here with us. My heat. I'd almost forgotten about it in the chaos of Riley's kidnapping, but my body hadn't forgotten. I could feel it building, a low simmer beneath my skin that my suppressants were barely containing. How do you know? I asked. About my heat? Your scent, Dayton said. It's changing, getting sweeter, more intense. Your body is preparing even if your mind hasn't accepted it yet. I touched my neck self-consciously, where my scent glands were. I don't want this. The bond, the heat, any of it. We know, Gable said gently. But it's coming anyway. They left me alone after that, closing the door softly behind them. I sat on the bed in this too-soft room in this too-nice penthouse and tried to figure out how my life had fallen apart so completely in less than 24 hours. Riley was being held by a crime lord who wanted to trade him for me. I was trapped in a penthouse with two alphas who insisted I was their fated mate. My heat was coming, whether I wanted it or not. And somewhere beneath all the panic and fear, my omega biology was still insisting that these alphas were mine, that I was safe with them, that everything would be perfect if I just stopped fighting. I picked up one of the Braille books from the nightstand, ran my fingers over the title page. Pride and Prejudice, one of my favorites. They'd even gotten that right. I started to read, letting the familiar words ground me, and tried not to think about what would happen when my body's biology finally overrode my mind's resistance. The next 24 hours passed in a strange, suspended tension. Dayton made good on his promise to teach me the penthouse layout. He walked me through every room, describing dimensions and furniture placement in precise detail. 15 steps from the living room couch to the kitchen island. 22 from my bedroom door to the bathroom. 8 steps from the hallway to Dayton's study. He never rushed me, never showed impatience when I made him repeat measurements or when I needed to touch every surface to build my mental map. Gable joined us for some of it, adding details Dayton missed. The study has a leather chair that creaks when you sit in it. The kitchen floor slopes slightly near the sink, water drainage from when they renovated. By the second day, I could navigate the main living areas without my cane, counting steps automatically, my hands finding door frames and furniture edges without conscious thought. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt like accepting my captivity. They didn't push, didn't try to touch me beyond the necessary guidance. They made food appear when I was hungry, coffee when I needed it, space when I got overwhelmed. They talked to me like I was a person, not property, asking about the books I liked, my work at the library, careful, neutral topics that avoided the elephant in the room. But I could feel their restraint like a physical thing, the way Gable's breathing would catch when I walked past him, the way Dayton's voice would roughen when I said his name. My scent was intensifying, I could smell it myself, rain and cotton giving way to something sweeter, more inviting, heat approaching. My suppressants were failing. I'd taken my dose this morning and felt it burn through my system in hours instead of the usual 24. My skin was too sensitive, my body temperature running hot, my omega instincts clawing their way to the surface no matter how hard I tried to push them down. And through it all, the constant low-level panic about Riley. They'd had people searching for him all day. I heard them on phone calls, giving orders in voices that made me glad I wasn't on the receiving end. Marco reported in every few hours with updates that went nowhere. Santos had Riley somewhere off the grid, somewhere their usual contacts couldn't penetrate. The deadline was tonight, midnight, the trade that wasn't going to happen because Dayton and Gable refused to even consider it. I was in my room, trying to read but unable to focus, when my phone rang. Riley's number. I answered before I could think twice. Riley? Perry. His voice was rough, pained. Perry, I'm so sorry. I fucked up. Where are you? I demanded. Are you hurt? Santos wants to talk to you, Riley said, and then there was a rustling sound like the phone being passed. Perry Ashford. A new voice, smooth and cold. I've heard so much about you. Where's my brother? I asked, keeping my voice steady through sheer force of will. Safe for now, Santos said. Whether he stays that way depends on you. I'll do whatever you want, I said quickly. Just don't hurt him. I heard movement in my doorway, felt the spike of alpha anger as both twins appeared. I ignored them. What I want, Santos said, is simple. You, for him. Midnight tonight at the old warehouse on Pier 47. You come alone, we make the trade, everyone walks away. I'll be there, I started to say, but the phone was suddenly plucked from my hand. He won't, Dayton said into the phone, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. And you won't live to see tomorrow if you touch him again, Santos. He hung up. Silence filled the room, broken only by my ragged breathing. You had no right, I started. We had every right, Dayton interrupted. You're not going anywhere near that warehouse. He has Riley. And he'll kill you both the moment he has you, Gable said. His voice was tight with barely controlled rage. It's a trap, Perry. You have to know that. I stood, my hands clenched into fists. Then what's your plan? Because I don't see how this ends with Riley alive if I don't go. We're working on it, Dayton said. You have 3 hours, I shouted. 3 hours to find him, or Riley dies and it's my fault because I wouldn't. It's not your fault, Gable interrupted. He crossed the room, his hands coming to my shoulders. Riley made his choices, borrowed money he couldn't pay. Got involved with people he shouldn't have. Those were his decisions, not yours. He's my brother, I whispered. He's all I have left. No, Dayton said quietly. You have us. I pulled away from Gable, my back hitting the wall. I don't want this. I don't want you. I just want my brother back and my life back, and... Heat spiked through me mid-sentence, so intense it stole my breath. I gasped, my knees buckling. Gable caught me before I hit the floor, lifting me easily. Fuck, he muttered. Dayton. I know, Dayton said grimly. Get him to the bed. Don't, I managed, trying to push at Gable's chest. My suppressants are done, Dayton said. I felt him close, his scent wrapping around me. Your heat is here, Perry. Fighting it will only make it worse. He was right. I could feel my body surrendering, my omega biology taking over completely. My scent spiked, filling the room with sweetness that made both alphas groan. I felt their control fracturing, their alpha instincts responding to my heat call. Gable laid me on the bed. I curled on my side, wrapping my arms around myself as another wave of heat rolled through me. It hurt, need and emptiness clawing at my insides, my body screaming for alpha touch, alpha scent, alpha knot. Get out, I gritted through clenched teeth. Both of you, get out. Perry, Dayton started. Please, I begged. Because I could feel myself losing control, feel the bond pulling at me, wanting them, needing them. If they stayed, I'd beg them to claim me. I'd give in completely. And then, where would Riley be? I heard them move to the door, hesitate. We'll be right outside, Gable said. His voice was strained. If you need us. I won't, I lied. The door closed. I was alone, with my heat, with the need building to unbearable levels, with the knowledge that my fated mates were 10 feet away and all I had to do was call and they'd come for me. I buried my face in the pillow and tried not to scream. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time lost meaning in the haze of heat. I heard myself whimpering, felt myself shaking, my body betraying me in every possible way. I needed Alpha. Needed touch, scent, the promise of safety and satisfaction that only a bonded mate could provide. The door opened. I knew who it was before he spoke, could identify him by scent alone now. Dayton. Perry, he said quietly. We found him. It took me several seconds to process the words through the heat fog. Riley? Marco just called. They tracked Santos to a warehouse in the industrial district. Different location than the meet. They're extracting Riley now. Relief crashed over me so intense it hurt. Is he okay? Beaten but alive, Dayton said. He came closer, and I could smell the restraint on him, the alpha instinct warring with his control. We're bringing him here. He'll be safe. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me, he said. We did it for you. Another wave of heat rolled through me, and I curled tighter, biting back a cry. I heard Dayton's breathing change, heard him take a step closer. Let us help you, he said softly. Please, Perry. I can smell your pain from here. This doesn't have to be torture. Can't, I managed. If I let you the bond. The bond is already forming, Dayton said. Has been since the moment we scented you. Fighting it won't make it go away. It'll just make you suffer for nothing. I don't want to need you, I admitted, the heat burning away my filters. I don't want to be someone who needs anyone. Too late, he said, and I felt the bed dip as he sat beside me. His hand came to my face, brushing sweat-soaked hair back. The touch sent electricity through me, my omega hindbrain purring with satisfaction. You do need us, Perry, and we need you. That's what fated mates means. Hate you, I whispered without heat. I know, he said gently. You can hate us and still let us take care of you. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. I felt his hand trail down my neck, careful and deliberate. When his thumb pressed against my scent gland, I couldn't stop the moan that escaped. Please, I heard myself beg, my body winning over my mind. Please, I can't. Shh, he soothed. We've got you. He must have signaled Gable somehow because I heard the door open again, felt the bed dip on my other side, both of them now, flanking me like they had in the library a lifetime ago. We won't claim you without your permission, Dayton said. But we can help with the pain, make it easier, if you'll let us. I should have said no, should have held on to my pride, my independence, my conviction that I didn't need anyone. But the heat was consuming me and they were right here, their scents promising relief, their presence offering safety I hadn't felt since my parents died. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Gable's hand found mine, squeezed gently. We'll take care of you, I promise. And they did. They didn't claim me that first night, didn't bite or bond, just held me through the worst of the heat waves, their scents calming the worst of the pain, their hands soothing without demanding. They brought me water when I needed it, changed the sweat-soaked sheets, murmured reassurances in voices rough with their own restraint. I fell asleep between them sometime near dawn, my body finally exhausted enough to override the heat temporarily. When I woke, Gable was gone, but Dayton was still there, his back against the headboard, my head pillowed on his chest. Riley? I asked, my voice hoarse. Safe, Dayton assured me. Marco got him out. He's in the guest room, sleeping off the sedatives the doctor gave him. Can I see him? Soon. Your heat will break completely in another day or so, then you can see him. I should have moved away from Dayton, put distance between us, reasserted boundaries that had blurred completely during the night. But his hand was in my hair, his heartbeat steady under my ear, and for the first time in years, I felt safe. Thank you, I said quietly, for saving him. You already thanked me, Dayton said. I mean it this time. I felt him shift, his hand tilting my face up, his thumb traced my cheekbone gently. When your heat fully breaks, he said, We need to have a conversation about the bond, about what you want, about where we go from here. But for now, just rest. You're safe. Riley's safe. Everything else can wait. I nodded against his chest and let myself drift, surrounded by alpha scent and the unfamiliar comfort of not being alone. The heat broke on the third day. I woke feeling clear-headed for the first time since it started, my body sore but no longer burning, my mind my own again. The room was empty, morning light filtering through curtains I couldn't see but could feel warming my face. I sat up carefully, taking inventory. Showered at some point during the heat, I remembered vaguely Gable helping me when my legs wouldn't hold me. Changed into clean clothes, soft cotton that smelled like their laundry detergent. The bed had been stripped and remade while I slept. I heard voices from the living room, Dayton and Gable's familiar tones, and another voice I'd know anywhere, Riley. I stood, grabbed my cane out of habit even though I'd memorized this space, and made my way to the living room. 17 steps to the hallway, turn left, 20 steps to the opening. Perry, Riley's voice, thick with emotion. Footsteps rushed toward me, and then his arms were around me, pulling me into a hug that smelled like hospital antiseptic and the cologne he'd worn since high school. God, Perry, I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. I hugged him back, relief and anger warring in my chest. You're an idiot. I know, he said, his voice breaking. I know. The debt, what I did, is forgiven, Dayton's voice cut in. We've been over this, Riley. The debt is settled. You're free to go. I felt Riley tense. And Perry? Perry makes his own choice, Gable said. Always has. Riley pulled back, his hands on my shoulders. Come home with me. Please. We'll figure something else out, some other way. Riley, I interrupted gently, I need to talk to you alone. I felt him hesitate, felt the twins' attention sharpen. Then Dayton. Use the study. We'll be in the kitchen if you need us. Riley guided me to the study, closed the door. I heard him pace, anxious energy radiating off him. Tell me the truth, I said. All of it. How much do you really owe? Who else besides Santos? He was silent for a long moment. Then, 50 to the Cross twins, 50 to Santos. Another 20 to a bookie on the south side. 10 to a loan shark in Chinatown. Perry, I have a problem with gambling. I've had it for years, and I thought I could control it, and $130,000, I said quietly. Riley, how did you even... I kept thinking the next bet would be the one that paid off, he said miserably. That I'd win big enough to pay everyone back and you'd never have to know. I'm so sorry. I ruined everything. You nearly got yourself killed, I corrected, but the Cross twins cleared your debt with them, and Dayton said they'd handle Santos too. Why? Riley asked. Why would they do that? I touched my neck, where my scent glands were still tender, still marked by their scent if not their bite, because they think I'm their fated mate, and they want me to stay here with them. Perry, no, you can't. They're dangerous. They're going to protect you. I finished. Even though you don't deserve it, even though you betrayed me and lied to me and put us both in danger, they're still going to make sure you're safe because I asked them to. Then ask them to let you go too, Riley pleaded. We'll leave the city, start over somewhere. With what money? I asked. How exactly do you plan to pay back the other $30,000 you owe? Or should I work 3 jobs instead of 2 while you gamble it away again? He flinched. That's not fair. It's completely fair, I said. My voice was steady, calm, all the anger I'd been holding burning away into something clearer. I've been taking care of you since I was 18, Riley. Working myself to exhaustion, sacrificing everything so you could have opportunities I never got. And you threw it away on gambling debts and never even told me. I was ashamed, he whispered. You should be, I said. But that doesn't change where we are now. You need help, Riley. Real help. Therapy, rehab, something, and I can't give you that. I don't have the resources or the energy or the ability anymore. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm staying here, I said. The decision crystallized as I spoke it aloud. With Dayton and Gable. Not because you forced me into it, not because I have no other choice, but because I want to. You want to stay with the mob? Riley asked incredulously. I want to stay with the alphas who saved your ungrateful ass, I corrected. Who are offering me safety and security and a bond I can feel pulling at me whether I like it or not, who make me feel less alone than I've felt in 6 years. This is insane, Riley said. You barely know them. I barely knew what I was doing when Mom and Dad died and I had to figure out how to raise you. I said, I barely knew how to navigate the world when I lost my sight. I've been figuring things out as I go my whole life, Riley. This is just one more thing. Perry? They have resources, I interrupted. Connections. Dayton said they can get you into a treatment program, a good one, fully paid. But you have to want it, Riley. You have to actually commit to getting better. Silence. Then, quietly, and if I don't? Then you're on your own, I said. It hurt to say it, but it was true. I love you, Riley. You're my brother, and I always will, but I can't save you anymore. I can't keep sacrificing my life for yours when you won't even try to help yourself. I heard him crying, soft, broken sounds. Part of me wanted to take it back, to comfort him, to promise I'd fix everything like I always had. But I was too tired and too raw and too done enabling him. I'll do it, he said finally. The program. I'll go. I want to get better, Perry. I swear. Then prove it, I said gently. Do the work, get clean, and maybe someday we can actually be family again instead of you being my responsibility. The door opened. Dayton's voice. Everything okay? Fine, I said. Riley was just leaving. I felt Riley hug me one more time, quick and tight. I love you, Perry, and I'm sorry for all of it. I know, I said. I love you too. Then he was gone, Marco escorting him out to get him settled into the treatment program Dayton had already arranged. The door closed behind them, and I was alone with the twins. You meant it, Gable said. Not a question. About staying. I meant it, I confirmed. I turned toward where I knew they were standing, but I have conditions. Name them, Dayton said. I want to keep working, I said. Maybe not at my old library, but somewhere. I need to do something with my life besides being someone's mate. Agreed, Dayton said immediately. There's a university library on the north side. Better pay, better resources. I can make some calls. I want my own bank account with enough money that I could leave if I needed to, I continued. Not because I plan to, but because I need to know I'm choosing this freely. Already set up, Gable said. Account number and access information are in your room. And I want honesty, I said. About your business, about the dangers, about what being bonded to you actually means. No more manipulation, no more secrets. They were quiet for a moment, then Dayton. That's fair. But Perry, there are some things we can't tell you. Not because we don't trust you, but because knowing certain details puts you at risk. Can you accept that there will be boundaries? I thought about it. As long as you're honest about when you're not telling me something and why. Deal, Gable said. I took a deep breath. And when my heat comes again, when the bond completes, I want it to be my choice. Not biology forcing my hand, not circumstances, but me consciously choosing you both. It will be, Dayton promised. We'll wait as long as you need. I nodded. Then, I don't need to wait. Silence. Perry, Gable started. I've spent 3 days with you in my heat, I interrupted. Felt how you took care of me, trusted me, put my needs first, even when your alpha instincts were screaming at you to claim me. You saved Riley, even though he didn't deserve it. You've given me more safety and security in 4 days than I've had in years. I paused. I'm choosing you, both of you. Right now, fully aware and in my right mind, I'm choosing this bond. I heard them move, felt them close the distance between us. Dayton's hand cupped my face gently while Gable's arm wrapped around my waist from behind. Surrounded by them, their scents wrapping around me like a promise. You're sure? Dayton asked softly. I'm sure, I said. Then we'll do it right, Gable rumbled. Not during heat, when you're vulnerable. During your next heat, when the bond can complete naturally. But until then, Dayton said, and I felt him lean closer, his breath warm against my face. You're ours, Perry Ashford, and we're yours. I tilted my face up, seeking his kiss. Our lips met, gentle and sure, and I felt the bond surge between us, recognizing, claiming, accepting. When we parted, I turned to Gable, found his mouth waiting. His kiss was different, rougher, more demanding, but just as reverent. Ours, Gable repeated against my lips. Yours, I agreed. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt like I was home. My next heat came 3 weeks later. In that time, I'd settled into life with the twins in ways that surprised me. Dayton had made good on his promise about the university library job, better hours and better pay, and colleagues who treated my blindness as an interesting challenge rather than a disability. Gable had taught me to cook by feel and scent, his hands guiding mine through complicated recipes. They'd both learned to read my moods through scent and body language, knowing when I needed space and when I needed comfort. The bond was growing stronger every day, even without the final claiming bite. I could sense them in the penthouse, feel their emotions like shadows of my own. Dayton's quiet satisfaction when a business deal went well. Gable's protective rage when someone looked at me wrong on the street. My own contentment settling into their lives like I'd always belonged there. We'd had family dinners with Riley twice now, supervised visits while he completed his inpatient treatment. He was different, quieter, more thoughtful, actually taking responsibility for his choices instead of making excuses. It was a start. I'd met Marco properly, learned that the gruff security chief had a soft spot for classic literature, and debated the merits of Hemingway versus Fitzgerald with me over coffee. I'd met their legitimate business partners, been introduced as their mate with a possessive pride that made my omega hindbrain sing. Santos was gone. Dayton didn't give me details, but I'd heard enough to know the problem had been resolved permanently. The other debts Riley owed had been quietly paid off. The recipients given very clear instructions that Riley was under cross protection and any future loans would be considered a hostile act. I was safe. Riley was safe. And I was about to complete the bond that had been pulling at me since that first day in the library. The heat came on a Saturday morning. I woke to that familiar spike of need, my body temperature rising, my scent flooding the bedroom with sweetness. But this time, there was no panic, no fear, just anticipation. Gable was already there, his scent telling me he'd been waiting. Perry? It's time, I said simply. He scooped me up, carried me to the master bedroom where Dayton was waiting. They'd prepared, I realized. Soft sheets, water within reach, the room scent marked by both of them so I'd feel safe and surrounded. You're sure? Dayton asked, even though we'd discussed this, even though I'd confirmed a dozen times. I'm sure, I said. I want this, want you, both of you. They undressed me gently, reverently, their hands mapping skin they'd touched before but never claimed. Dayton kissed me like I was something precious while Gable's mouth found my scent gland, licking and sucking in preparation for the bite to come. The heat made everything more intense, every touch electric, every scent overwhelming in the best way. They took turns preparing me, stretching me, making sure I was ready. When Gable finally pushed inside me, I gasped at the fullness, the rightness of it. Okay? He asked, his voice strained with control. Perfect, I managed. He moved slowly at first, building the pleasure in waves. Dayton's hands were everywhere, stroking and soothing and claiming. When I was on the edge, trembling with need, Gable leaned down and bit my right scent gland. The pain was sharp and bright and lasted only a second before pleasure crashed over me. The bond snapped into place like a physical thing, connecting me to Gable in ways I couldn't explain. I could feel his emotions, his love and possessiveness and satisfaction. Could feel his alpha instinct singing with triumph at finally claiming his omega. He nodded inside me, locking us together, and I sobbed with the intensity of it. When his knot finally went down, Dayton was there, gentle hands positioning me for him. His claiming was different, slower, more controlled. He built the pleasure methodically until I was begging, and only then did he bite my left scent gland, completing the second bond. Two mates, two bonds. I could feel them both now, distinct but harmonizing, their emotions mixing with mine until I couldn't tell where I ended and they began. Ours, Dayton breathed against my neck. Mine, I corrected, finding the strength to bite his wrist, to mark him as mine in return. Then Gable's wrist, my teeth breaking skin, completing the pack bond. They both groaned, their scents spiking with possessive satisfaction. The heat lasted 3 days. They took turns caring for me, claiming me, making sure I knew beyond any doubt that I belonged to them and they belonged to me. When it finally broke, I was exhausted and satisfied and bonded so completely I couldn't imagine life without them. No regrets? Dayton asked, his fingers tracing the healing bite marks on my neck. No regrets, I confirmed. You're stuck with me now. Good, Gable rumbled, pulling me closer against his chest. Because we're never letting you go. And they didn't. 6 months later, I was standing in the university library, shelving returns in the Braille section, when I felt it. The pull of the bond, warm and sure, telling me Dayton and Gable were approaching even before I heard their footsteps. Perry, Dayton's voice, amused. You're not supposed to be working today. I covered for Melissa, I said, not turning around. Her daughter has the flu. Always helping everyone, Gable said, and I felt his arm wrap around my waist from behind. You never stop, do you? Says the man who worked through our anniversary dinner last month, I countered. That was one time, Gable protested. 3 times, I corrected. But who's counting? Dayton's hand found my face, tilting it up for a kiss. We brought lunch, thought we could eat in the quiet reading room. The quiet reading room where we'd first met, where they'd fallen asleep on my shoulders and woken up to claim me. We'd been back there dozens of times, a private joke between the 3 of us. I have 15 minutes left on my shift, I said. We'll wait, Dayton said simply. And they did, settling into chairs nearby while I finished my work. I could feel them through the bond, their contentment at being near me, their alpha satisfaction at watching their omega in his element. When my shift ended, we went to the quiet reading room together. They'd packed sandwiches from the deli I liked, coffee exactly how I preferred it, fruit that they hand-fed me between kisses. Riley called this morning, Dayton said eventually. He's 6 months clean, got accepted into a community college program for accounting. That's good, I said, meaning it. Riley and I had rebuilt our relationship slowly, carefully. He'd earned back my trust one small decision at a time. We'd never be what we were before, but we were becoming something better. And Santos's old territory is fully integrated, Gable added. No resistance, no complications. They still told me about their business in vague terms, enough to keep me informed, but not enough to put me at risk. It was a compromise I'd learned to live with. There's something else, Dayton said. His tone had changed, gone careful in a way that made my omega instincts perk up. What? I asked. We've been thinking, Gable said, about the future, about family. My heart rate kicked up. We'd talked about this, about the possibility, but never seriously. You want pups. We want pups with you, Dayton corrected. If you want them to. There's no pressure, Perry. Your career, your independence, they're all important. But if it's something you'd consider... Yes, I interrupted. Yes, I want that. I felt them both go still. Yes? Gable echoed. Yes, I repeated firmly. I want a family with you. Want to give our children everything we didn't have. Safety, security, 2 parents who love them and each other. Dayton kissed me, deep and claiming. When we parted, Gable took his turn, his hands cradling my face like I was something infinitely precious. Soon then, Dayton said. We'll start trying soon. Not here, I said, laughing. This is still a library. Says the Omega who begged us to claim him in the study last week, Gable teased. I felt heat flood my cheeks. That was different. You were being impossible, and I cut myself off, unwilling to admit how easily they could wind me up. You what? Dayton prompted, voice full of amusement. Wanted my mates to pay attention to me, I finished primly. We always pay attention to you, Gable said. Can't help it. You're the center of our world. It should have been embarrassing, the casual possessiveness, the public claiming, but the bond hummed with their sincerity, their love, their absolute certainty that I was theirs and they were mine. Take me home, I said quietly. Please. They did. And later, wrapped between them in our bed, their hands mapping my skin with familiar reverence, their scents surrounding me with safety and love, I thought about that day in the library 6 months ago. The day 2 exhausted alphas had fallen asleep on a poor, blind Omega's shoulder. The day they'd woken up and decided I was theirs. The day they'd refused to let me go. The day my real life had begun. Perry? Dayton's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Where'd you go? Nowhere, I said truthfully. I'm exactly where I belong. Damn right you are, Gable rumbled, pulling me closer. I fell asleep between them, the bond warm and steady, my mate's heartbeats syncing with mine. Safe, loved, home, and I never looked back. Thank you for joining Perry's journey from independence to belonging, from solitude to pack. Sometimes the best things in life happen when we're too tired to fight them, when we fall asleep in the right place at the right time, when we let ourselves be caught by people who refuse to let us go. May you find your own safe harbor, your own home in unexpected places, and may you always have the courage to accept love when it finds you, even if it's not the love you planned for. Until next time,